Coming up on The Disturbance, the Golden State Warriors have done it. They are once again the National Basketball Association champions. That's 4 championship rings for Steph Curry and the crew in the last 8 years. But I have to say, the post-game interviews and press conferences were absolutely phenomenal. We'll get into Draymond Green's opinions about himself in just a little bit. And I have to say, holy cannoli, Batman, as Klay Thompson utters holy cannoli on national and international television. I've got all of that, and trust me, a whole lot more coming up on the big show today.
Live and on tape from the heart of Silicon Valley, this is The Disturbance, hosted by Dave Daba. Now to the host, who can't stop ripping on players, coaches, and unbelievably bad front office management, Dave Daba.
It is super late night on June 16th of the year 2022. I'm Dave Daba. Thanks so much for joining me on The Disturbance today, or shall I say, tonight. Now, we're going to cover this NBA championship game here in just a little bit. Coming up on the show, we'll get into Draymond Green's opinions about himself in his post-game interview with one Lisa Salters. And of course, we will talk a little holy cannoli as well and talk about the fantastic and incredible comeback by Klay Thompson and the rest of this Warriors organization. But how can you not lead off with the very fact that Steph Curry is the most valuable player of this year's NBA Finals? It was an obvious, easy vote if you actually had a vote. Steph, while he had an off game in Game 5 of the NBA Finals, still put up 16 points and still had 8 assists, and was a huge reason that Andrew Wiggins, the former Minnesota Timberwolf, was actually able to put on the performance that he put on during Game 5 of the NBA Finals. So when you look back at this particular NBA championship for the Golden State Warriors, you really have to hand it to Bob Myers. Bob Myers being the president of basketball operations for the Golden State Warriors, a person who does not get enough credit outside of the Bay Area. Now, I live in the Silicon Valley, I think, as you all know at this point. And I've been here for 20 plus years. I've been a religious Los Angeles Laker fan. I'm a Minnesota Timberwolf fan from day one. Long story, different podcast another day. I'll get into all of that. But I have been here for 20 years, and if I have a third favorite team in the National Basketball Association, it is absolutely the Golden State Warriors. But what I respect most about this Warriors team was the ownership change. Because sometimes in sports, an ownership change is needed to make a team better. Just look at how bad the Chicago Bulls have been basically ever since Michael Jordan walked away from the team. Could it be that an ownership change is needed in Chicago? I'm just saying that this Golden State Warrior team under the new ownership, which took place in 2010, started to build year after year after year. Enter Bob Myers into the picture. Now, I know a lot of these post-game podcasts are going to talk about how great Steph Curry was, and they're going to talk about how great it was to see Klay Thompson on the court, the job that Andrew Wiggins did. They'll go through all of the stats of the game. I mean, I can sit here and do this and say, Andrew Wiggins had 18 points in the game. And if it wasn't for the young play of one Jordan Poole, who popped in 15 points and made some key shots when Steph needed some rest, this could have been a completely different outcome. And of course, Curry put in 34. Klay Thompson still looks like He's, up and down game to game, but he still had an important 12 points in this game. And how can you discount the performance that one Draymond Green put on the court? 12 points, 8 assists, and 12 rebounds. You have to give it to Draymond Green. So that's what you're going to hear on everybody else's podcast. They're going to talk about how Jason Tatum had a terrible game, and they're going to talk about how Al Horford poured in 19 and kept the team in it. They're going to talk about Jaylen Brown and the job that he did. They're going to talk about the nearly double-double that Marcus Smart put up with 9 assists and 9 points. And they're going to analyze the heck out of those things. But when you really look at it, a lot of these NBA championships are actually won in the summer. They're won in the summer, and they're won before the NBA trading deadlines. And when you look at the build of this Golden State Warriors organization over the last couple years, you go from the worst record in the NBA, which was, of course, because of injuries. And then you go to the fact that they can't even win a game to get into the playoffs the year before. And you start to see the build. You've got this younger group of talent coming in with Jordan Poole. You've got my former Minnesota Timberwolf #1 draft pick, Andrew Wiggins, who basically dished the Minnesota Timberwolves by saying he just wants to win and play for an organization that wins. We get it, Andrew. We get it. So Andrew Wiggins is a key point in the success of this team. Now, I will point out that Andrew Wiggins is not a Golden State Warrior if KD remains with the Warriors. And we're probably talking about the Warriors winning their 6th championship, not just their 4th championship in the last 8 years, if KD had actually done the right thing and stayed. That being said, you have to give it to Bob Myers for the Gary Payton Jr. Piece. Gary Payton Jr., as Steph Curry calls him, the tallest 6'3" player in the world. And it's so true when you watch him play. You watch him, that Bob Myers understands that you need players who are specialists. Look, they did not bring in Gary Payton Jr. for his offensive prowess, did they? But what they did do is work with him a lot in the past 12 months, and Gary Payton's prowess on the offensive side of the ball is a real thing. He can put up 15 points a game for you if you need him to, and as well play sort of a Patrick Beverley Nat style defense that very few players actually play in the league today. So Bob Myers does a good job there. He does a good job with Jordan Poole. He does a good job making a move for Andrew Wiggins, clearing some cap space. They get Klay Thompson back. Draymond Green, delivers. You can sort of tell that he might be looking down the backside of career mountain, but he still played well enough throughout the season. So you've got these aging players mixed with these young guys, and we haven't even talked about Kuminga and Moody yet. And don't talk to me about James Wiseman, because I'm not really sold on the Wiseman experience. That might be the one misstep that I believe this Warriors organization has made over the past couple years. I am literally going to be the only person recording a podcast tonight that says that. Look, Moody and Kuminga are the future of this Golden State Warriors organization, and who knows what else they'll do in the upcoming years as Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Dray and Draymond Green begin to age a little bit more. Just brilliant moves left and right. But if that's not enough, what the Warrior organization does is they have these assistant coaches, and these assistant coaches bond with some of these players and work with these players individually. And so we saw a lot of that with Jordan Poole and Chris DeMarco. We saw a lot of that with Steph Curry over the years and this Warrior organization. they do a good job from the top down. And I mean, from the ownership to Bob Myers, who puts the team on the court, which is a much more difficult job today than it was in the mid 80s and early 90s, because now you're filling a roster of basically 15 players, and you're also having to move players between the G League. And my wife says, "What's the G stand for?" It was like Gatorade. He had to move between the G League and the NBA, and that is, not an easy thing to do. So a lot of really good players that I haven't even talked about that were key to this Golden State Warriors victory. I mean, just look at Otto Porter Jr., who didn't have a huge game in Game 6, but certainly did in a couple of the other games in this series. Where would they be without Otto Porter Jr.? I'm just saying, Kevin Looney, who didn't score a single point tonight, but grabbed 7 rebounds. Kevin Looney plays with so much heart, night in and night out. One of, I think, only 2 NBA players to play in all the NBA games this particular year. This just was a magical job by Bob Myers, the coaching staff, the scouts, and the ownership group that has done a lot of things right with this Warrior organization since they took over. All right. So there you go. So, holy cannoli was uttered by our good friend Klay Thompson in a interview, which was absolutely a fantastic thing for him to say. But maybe one of my favorite parts of the post game interviews was Lisa Salters getting to Draymond Green and having a chance to interview him. And she said to him, "What do you think you learned about yourself from this run?" So this is Lisa Salters asking Dray this question. And Dre's answer was, "I didn't learn anything about myself. Knew I was resilient. Maybe they thought otherwise, but nobody gave me this." Look, you've got to absolutely love the candor of Draymond Green. He's being asked, what did you learn about yourself when you were sort of having some bad games? And he's like, "Nothing. I learned absolutely nothing about myself. I know who I am, and I knew what I needed to do." And that's the end of the story. How many people in sports would answer a question that way? That is one of the reasons Draymond Green, when his playing days are over, will certainly stay in the sports media spotlight, because he's one of those guys like a Charles Barkley that has the ability to be just honest. And there's nothing more important today in the world of social media, in the world of media in general, for people to not put on an act and to actually be honest about who they are and express their opinions in a candid, honest way that hopefully won't offend too many people. So I think Draymond Green's got a huge step forward. Now, there's going to be all these people that you're going to see on television over the next 24 to 48 hours that are going to start using the D word. And they're not going to be saying "deba" unless this virally blows up somehow. They're going to be saying the D word, which is dynasty, and 4 championships in 8 years. And they're going to say, this team is loaded. They're going to run it back. If I had to place a bet on who's going to win the NBA championship next year, I would say the Golden State Warriors. I always thought this stuff was absolutely idiotic. The draft hasn't happened yet. We haven't really gotten through anything real on the free agency side of the fence. Summer League is still a good 4 weeks away. So for anybody to say anything that would be different, like, is there going to be somebody that jumps on onto a podcast now and says, I think the Atlanta Hawks are going to win it all next year. Like, of course they're going to say the Golden State Warriors. It is one of the easiest layups that you could have in the sports media. I just like to point this stuff out just so you know how sort of idiotic it is. It's like the Rams just won the Super Bowl. And of course, they're going to be favorites to run it back next year before the NFL draft, before free agency. But teams are different year in and year out. And this Golden State Warrior team will be different as well. There's one thing that I didn't point out about this team, and that is that they brought the old man back. Holy cannoli, they brought the old man back, Klay Thompson. And I'm not talking about Klay. I'm talking about Andrew Iguodala. So they brought the old man Iguodala back, who had numerous podcasts over the past 6 months. I've talked about how he's already planning his golf trip to the Bahamas. Maybe he'll stop in Hawaii, work his way back, and go in the other direction. But Andre Iguodala, I guarantee, will be at a beach resort someplace in the next 2 weeks playing golf if he's not playing in some celebrity golf tournament next. Basically, Iguodala has been over for quite some time. Yeah, he might be able to go into a game and score 4 to 6 points for you. Maybe he'll get lucky and get you into double digits. Maybe he'll get a couple rebounds. Maybe he'll put a good quarter together. But to have him on your roster for this year had nothing to do with his ability or even the expectations that Steve Kerr had on this Warrior team or on Iguodala to actually play. It was yet another example of this Warrior organization understanding the importance of leadership. The importance of leadership in sports matters. Ryan Tannehill. Look, Ryan Tannehill jumps up and says, it's not my responsibility to help the young quarterback out when he comes to the Tennessee Titans. I immediately trade that guy because that is not the culture I want. That is not the leadership that I'm looking for from somebody in a leadership position. After tonight's game was over, Iguodala went up to several of the Boston Celtic players, several, not just the stars, some of the other players as well. But you know what he was saying, don't you? You know, he was saying, keep your head up, keep working, work hard, work harder than you've ever worked before. Words of encouragement for a guy whose team just beat that other team. Trying to show what leadership is extremely important. And the move to bring Iguodala, give him a spot on this roster, made a tremendous amount of sense. Now, I think we're done seeing Iguodala dressed up in a basketball uniform. I'm assuming he will go into coaching somewhere at some point when he gets tired of playing golf. All right. So that's it. That's what we got for the disturbance. Look, Steph Curry absolutely deserved the MVP. Just a phenomenal basketball player. I've had him in my top 10 all NBA basketball players of all time. The debate on, is he itching closer to the top 5? Well, you have to sort of say, he really has revolutionized the game, hasn't he? Look, LeBron James has 4 rings. Steph Curry now has 4 rings. I'm just saying. Okay. I want to thank everybody for tuning into this very special edition of the Disturbance Late Night, if you will. Do check out our big sports website at disturbance.live when you have a chance. We are also simulcast on YouTube, so you can check out my mug there. Do look for that when you have a chance. For the Disturbance, I'm Dave DeBaugh, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.
The Disturbance is a production of the Mighty Rip Podcast Network. For more witty, 100% independent sports coverage, check out our big website at mighty.rip. Okay, go ahead and kill the music now.